I am with Isabelle Guarino. Isabelle is a two-time best-selling author named one of the top influencers in senior housing. She's been featured on Bigger Pockets, the Wealthy Way podcast, and Sales Disruptors. She's the CEO of the Residential Assisted Living Academy, sharing the message of doing good and doing well with hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs and investors across the country. Twice she's been named the future leader of assisted living. She is the nation's top coach and trainer for all things residential assisted living. Welcome, Isabelle.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. And we just talked offline. You and I have had to reschedule because of kid stuff and all this stuff. And you recently had your second child, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I'm glad we were able to sync up our schedules. And you're coming to us from the great state of Arizona. So
Yes.
yeah,
It's hot here.
yeah, right. Yep. So good deal. Well, I'm excited to have you on because we're going to talk about a niche within real estate that is not, there's a lot of niches and guests I have on here that are very mainstream, right? Things that every guru is talking about on every YouTube video or Instagram reel. What you're in is not that. And from what I have researched and learned and heard you speak on yourself, it should be that because it is a very good niche, and that is the area of residential assisted living. So, most people hear assisted living and they immediately think healthcare, where you see it as both healthcare and a real estate opportunity. So help us connect the dots to get things going.
Yeah, so I think you're right on the money. When people think of assisted living, they kind of think of two things. Well, I'm not a medical professional, I'm a real estate investor. So how and why should I get involved in this? And on the other hand, they think of a huge commercial facility, right? 100 beds and, all these different operations going on. And it is really neither of those things. It is actually a single family home, a large luxury single family home, but still a residentially zoned single family home in a regular neighborhood that houses anywhere from 6 to 16 seniors getting 24/7 medical attention and care, but not from you, the owner operator, from licensed caregivers who are coming and going from the home, helping support those seniors. And it really helps the cash flow a lot in the single family space because, as you know, we're seeing only, a couple $100 a door, and it becomes a long-term game of how do I hold this door for 15 years, or a numbers game. How do I get 100 of these paying me $100 a month to get to my, financially free number? So with residential assisted living, we kind of flip all of that on its head and say, hey, one door can get you to that number. And you really only have to work 5 hours a week because you're sitting in the owner's box. So
Right.
it's pretty different from what most people think, but it's really cool once you start to dive in.
Yeah, and what I think a lot of people listening to will right out of the gate, they're going to compare it to like these trends that pop up in real estate opportunities. So a big one over the last really since COVID is short-term rentals, right? Airbnb and all of that. And you kind of see a big bubble and then that kind of starts deflating a little bit.
Yeah.
This seems different. This is something that it's a bubble that's going to keep inflating for quite a while because it is tied directly with people are living longer, they're living healthier longer, and it's going to create an opportunity. So speak to kind of the demographics behind it and where you see this going, this opportunity.
The numbers that are in our favor are just crazy. I mean, it's even crazy to me, and I've been in this space for 15 years, but right now we're 5 years out from the eldest of the baby boomers coming into this market. So we still have 5 years until 76 million people need housing care and assistance, right? That's a 20-year run. We are currently 1.3 million beds short. So how are we supposed to house and care for 76 million people when we're already a million beds short? The numbers are incredibly in our favor because the supply is low and the demand is off the chart. So really saturation is like not even a word used in our industry because there is just not enough money in the world to house the coming silver tsunami of seniors. And we all know what happens when there's no supply, right? And massive demand, prices go up. The cost of care for a senior to live in assisted living right now is about $6,200 per month per person. So when there's not enough beds and not enough caregivers and all of this stuff, that cost is just going to go up and up and up and up and up. It's projected to be over $15,000 a month in just the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So not only right now is it a good time to get in, but for the next 20 years, this is an incredible run we're about to have in this space that you really don't see in, Airbnb or these other types of kind of fun niche investing.
Yeah. And that kind of leads to my next question. I'm gonna come back to one other thought I just had from what you just said, but like someone someone that comes back and listens to this episode in 5, 10 years, will they have missed the boat or is the boat just setting sail still?
What's really cool is when you look at the demographic charts, actually, because the baby boom was such a massive jump in our population, every generation after that is actually still quite large. So there's a lot of charts that will show you, hey, they go huge. And yes, there's a drop off for Gen X and millennials, but it's nowhere near what we're coming from. There's just more people on planet Earth today. And like you said, we're living longer, we're living more healthfully. This is really end of life care. It's those last 3.5 years of life where you need help getting out of a chair, bathing, toileting, eating, taking medication. That's what we're focused on in residential assisted living. And I see this going beyond the 20 years. But let's be real, most people listening to this, all we need is a solid 20 years of crazy cash flow every single month with these appreciating assets that our kids can either sell and make millions or keep and maintain working 5 hours a week, continuing that cash flow. That's all we really need.
Yeah. So like when I think of assisted living facilities, I think of a nursing home, right? Like a large facility. You hear the nightmares, the horror stories of just how there's not enough care for the number of beds, and it's just, they're not getting the attention. So, I, what I love about what you're doing and what you're teaching is this is creating an opportunity within that world for families to say, okay, there is an alternative out here where they can get more attention and stuff. So, walk us through what one of these smaller facilities, houses, however you want to label it, what it looks like and what kind of attention they're getting there versus a larger facility I spoke of.
Great question, because that is the biggest draw. It is the family members saying, hey, I feel bad. I feel guilty dropping mom or dad off at this huge facility where I know the care is terrible. I mean, this is how terrible it is. There's 30 seniors to one caregiver,
Mm.
meaning if you press your call button, right now the average response time is about 2 hours in a big box facility. If you have a brain bleed, a broken rib, a serious injury because you just fell off your bed or the toilet, guess what? That is life or death. And people are literally unnecessarily dying. I hear these stories every single day in large facilities because the system is set up to fail them. And it's not just failing the seniors, it's failing the families who trusted in that institution. And it's also failing the caregivers because they signed up to do this job because they love seniors and they want to support seniors. Listen, they could get paid the same working at Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out, but they're not doing that. They want to be in this space, but the system is broken and it doesn't even allow them to care for the seniors that they really want to give that support to.
Right.
And in kind of opposition, right, is the residential assisted living model where, like I said, you have 6 to 16 and that maximum number depends on your state rules and regulations. I'm here in Phoenix where I can have 10 seniors in a home. So all of my homes have 10 bed, 10 bath and 10 beautiful seniors living in them. We do a 5 seniors to 1 caregiver ratio. So the care is significantly better.
Yeah.
Also, it's a smaller space. So if you fall, we're literally seeing you or finding you within 90 seconds. That is the average response time in smaller homes. It is vastly different, and yet you're paying the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the natural, so I'm thinking like as an investor right now, and like most of our audience is, that sounds great. but is this a real estate business, or am I investing into a healthcare business, a hospitality business? Like which is it? Am I running this actual facility, or am I buying it and I'm leasing it to someone? Or how is the from a business flow standpoint, how does that look?
There's really three ways that people get involved. One, you can own the real estate and lease it to an operator who's going to run the business in your home. In that case, you don't really have like a lot of the same benefits, meaning if your own loved one needed care, it's not like you can move them in for free, right? Because it's someone else's business. You're just a landlord. But you do get up to 2 times the fair market rent on that property because you've taken it, renovated it, got it fully ready for assisted living. And so someone is willing to pay for speed for all that you've done. So being a landlord in the space is an option. Another option is just being a JV partner or private money lender. So let's say you want to deploy, 500K up to, a million and get that back in 3 to 5 years at maybe 12% plus a point. That is an option as well. The third and kind of middle option, what I do and what a lot of the people we work with end up doing is they own the real estate and the operations company. They're not living in the home, they're not working in the home, right? They're not even licensed to do that, but they hire the licensed professionals. A licensed administrator is kind of your key hire. And in the real estate world, that's your PM, right?
Yeah.
They run all the day to day, they really manage the business, and then they hire your caregivers. And so the caregivers are doing the 24/7 care of the residents. Your role as the owner operator is to run the real estate, manage the real estate, and then manage the business. So maybe you're doing payroll, maybe you're doing SEO marketing ads, online, but you are not working in the home with the seniors. You're really doing high level business management stuff.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. So let's get down into kind of the flow or the model of this. So you mentioned earlier, like you own several that are 10 bedroom, 10 baths. Well, obviously there's not, if I'm going out searching for a facility or a house to buy to turn into, there's not many 10 bed, 10 baths. So you're buying these things to do some form of remodel to make it accommodate what it is. So walk us through, if you could, in any way you want, but like what size housing we should be looking for, folks should be looking for, how many, what markets, what demographics we should be looking for, population sizes, things like that, all the way down to, how to underwrite these deals, financing for them, all the way to the end, if you don't mind doing that.
Okay. We got a lot there. I had to write down the things so I don't forget. Okay.
It's a lot.
The easy kind of rule of thumb is you want 300 to 500 square feet per senior. So if you have
Okay.
10 seniors, minimum of 3,000 square foot home, upwards of 5,000 is very comfortable. You are correct. None of my homes started as a 10-10, but they've all been converted to become that. One was a 4-3, one was a 6-5, the other was a 5-5. And so you're not going to find something that's perfectly ready most of the time. So, but you are going to find something that maybe already has 6,000 square feet. And so you're just chopping it up differently. Maybe building out the garage, turning a master into 2 bedrooms, turning a den into a bedroom or two. I mean, there's many different ways you can do it, but it is not pad split where you're just chopping the whole house into bedrooms, right? We still want to maintain kitchen, living, dining room, even other luxury things like a movie theater room or a game room, a library. These are high end luxury homes, which leads to the next question of demographics. Where should these homes be and what really should you be looking for? And our kind of buy box is based really around the people who are living around the home. We're not targeting the senior, we're targeting daughter Judy, the adult child who's choosing to put mom or dad in the home.
Mhm.
So you want to find the area in any market where the majority population is 50 to 70 years old, making 2 times the median income, homeowners, and college grads. Those four things kind of tell me that, hey, this person has enough money and they're of the age of someone whose parents likely need care. And they don't want to drive 45 minutes outside of town because it's cheaper. They want to drive 5 minutes on their way home from work to visit mom. So the closer to them, the better. The bigger the footprint of the home, the better. You can do this in any market. We have students in all 50 states. All of my personal care homes are here in Phoenix, but we invest in about 47 across the country. So I have investments all over. It is possible everywhere. And financing, that was kind of the last, part of that you were asking about. What's really cool is there's so many ways you can get creative with real estate financing these days. And a lot of the traditional things that your listeners have already doing or have already heard of, most of them will apply. But one of my favorites for this space is using an SBA 7A or an SBA 504 loan. Now, the reason I like those two is because not only will it cover the cost of the real estate, but it covers the cost of the renovation as well as your FF&E and your carrying cost because you're not cash flowing day one. You might need 6 months to fill this thing up. So you need to have money coming in and be able to pay those bills and not be strapped for cash. My favorite part of an SBA loan is that you get paid as a managing partner all throughout the deal. So the real estate, let's say it's $1 million, the reno, 250. Okay, you might need another 200 for FF&E and maybe 100 for carrying costs, and a reasonable salary for you might be 80K. Package all that in, that's what you're getting from the SBA, and they're asking for anywhere between 5 to 20% as that down payment, which doesn't have to be your money. It can always be OPM or private money or all sorts of ways to get creative. But SBA is one of the easier and one of my favorite ways to fund these deals.
Yeah, no, that's great information. So it's essentially structured. The SBA loan. They're structuring it. It's a real estate acquisitions operation loan, but it's a business loan. And yeah, so okay, that's very good. Um, so from a from a let's compare it to maybe a long-term rental. Like you buy a 4,000 square foot house that gets what it gets in that market compared to a short-term rental, but also compared to what your model is. So do you have like just some high level numbers to give folks an idea of what the actual cash flow can look like under this model?
Yeah. So I'll break down one of my care homes. So we get about $6,000 per month for my 10 seniors. So I have 60K coming in, but I do not get to keep all of that, right? The mortgage is about 10K. And so that's gone right away. And then to run the business, to pay my caregivers, pay for food, activities, utilities, liability insurance, I mean, property insurance, maintenance, all the expenses might be about 40K a month. So that one home gives me 10K a month net take home. And I'm not working in it. I'm not living in it. I'm spending about 5 hours a week on Zoom, just like, we are right now doing meetings with the property manager or licensed administrator in our world. And she's running all the day to day. So that's another cool thing. I visit my homes twice a year. Like,
So
very.
so is there with that said, is there so once you get these up and running, like obviously you could let's say you want to exit, right?
Yep.
You want to exit. So you could sell the whole thing, the house, the business and everything. But is there a component where you own the real estate, but you're also operating the business? You have a business to sell while still maintaining ownership of the real estate. Is there, I mean, is that how it's kind of valued?
You can sell the business if you wanted to and maintain the real estate, and you are now the landlord on that property basically. So that is one way. Or just like we talked about earlier, you can just straight be the landlord and somebody else creates this business in your home. Now, the value of these businesses and how people sell them, the real estate is the real estate. It's worth what it's worth. So that's one. But the business is anywhere between 2 to 5 times the EBITDA.
Okay.
So obviously, if I'm selling, I'm saying it's 5 times. If I'm buying, I'm saying it's two. Traditionally, it falls in that 3 to 4 multiple. I feel like that's very fair. And it's really worth what someone is willing to pay. Because if they want to get in the game and they want to do this quickly, they might be willing to pay a higher multiple just to get the ball rolling. There's
Yep.
30,000 group homes across our country today. And one of the ways we show people how to get involved in this space is converting a single family like we've been talking about. But another way is buying an existing business, buying the real estate, buying the business. You're up and running, cash flowing day one. that's one of my favorite ways to get involved in this space.
Got it. The obvious question I have right now is because I heard, we met at the Dealmaker event back in March, and then Jim Ingersoll has, set all this up, which is great. But the obvious question I had at that point, and I'm going to ask it to you now, this sounds so good. Like it sounds so great. Why is it not talked about? Why is it not so mainstream? But what am I missing there?
I think that there's a couple of things. People are afraid of liability, right? They think like, what happens if? What happens when? Well, reality check. This is end of life care. 95% of the people will pass in the home, and that is okay. A 95-year-old going into assisted living is going to pass. We're all going to pass. It is okay, you know? So I think that there's a lot of fear around liability, right? And what happens? You get liability insurance, you have cameras, you train your staff well. There's a lot of ways to mitigate risk, but we live in a litigious society. That's a very valid concern. So liability is a fear that keeps people from getting involved. Second, this does take a lot of capital to get started. It is not get rich quick. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. And even though it doesn't have to be your own money, you know just as well as I do, a lot of people stop themselves from doing things because they're so limited by what's between their two ears. They think, this is all I have in the bank, this is all I can do. And they're afraid to use good debt to get into different spaces that can actually change their life. So, the cost of entry. And then I think third, the reason a lot of people are not really even well, this is becoming more and more popular. 15 years in the space, 15 years ago, people would look at me like I had 10 eyes when I said senior housing in a residential space. Now, a lot more people are at least somewhat familiar with it, but they think there's just so many myths. Like, don't I have to be a doctor or nurse? Don't I have to work in the home? Don't I have to do all this stuff? No, 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 right? So that's why we've kind of leaned into the education of it, because I'm cash flowing great on my homes. And these actually got passed to me from my father, right? He was in this space because my grandma needed care. He bought one to put her in so we wouldn't have to pay for care for her, so he could cash flow and she could live for free. Pretty smart, idea right there. And then when he suddenly passed, his businesses got passed to me. And so being able to have a business that passes from generation to generation is something that is pretty rare, right? A lot of times they fail in that pass off, but this is something that when set up correctly, it can pass well. You really don't have to work that hard at it in the beginning. You absolutely do. There is a lot of rules and regs and getting it licensed and all this stuff. But once it's up and running, it's a whole lot smoother. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot of unknown what ifs, but I do think people are starting to get involved because my time in this space, it's been a stark difference of people knowing nothing to a lot more people having at least some baseline of understanding of what this is.
Are there, so for the folks that may be hearing this, they're in a situation where they're maybe trying to diversify some of their capital, but they want to get into a niche like this as passively as possible. Are there operators that are syndicating stuff like this or running funds buying stuff like this where an investor could come in and say, hey, here's $1 million I want to invest and earn a good return, but passively off this asset?
Yeah. So, like I said before, the three ways of getting started: owning and operating, just owning the real estate, or being a private lender. That is absolutely a way to get involved. Many of our students do syndications for this. They're always looking for investors. There's a lot of different opportunities like that. Now, the rate of returns and what you're going to get is all individual. It's not
Right.
cookie cutter. So I don't have a blanket answer for that, but
Right.
definitely you can just deploy your capital on this and not be involved in the real estate or the business at all.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think, you know, I think this is true with anything in real estate or business or life really, but with something like this, like we've talked about it for the last 20 minutes at a very high level, right? And it's a lot more nuanced than what we're talking about. Um, and when you have things like this, it's very important to, if you're going to dive in, to become very educated in it. And that's where you mentioned you have transitioned more to that education side of it, and you're you are there's not many education companies in this space, if any, at your level. So I want to transition into that right now. How, number one, how important is it to link up with a mentor, a coach, some type of network that can guide people through this? And number two, specific to what you offer, what is that? Like, how does that look? What do you offer through your program?
I mean, I am just a big fan of having a coach or mentor in
Mm,
any space you're going to get into. All of the greats, no matter what they're involved in, have a coach or mentor, right? Who they will give so much credit to. And I think that it's just silly to think that going at something alone by yourself, like, oh, that's how I'm going to get there. You will go so much further and faster with somebody by your side telling you these are the pitfalls to avoid. Here's what to jump over. I'm here to support you. So that goes without being said. Whatever you're going to do, you should have a coach or mentor, which is partially why we got into this space because no one was there to coach and mentor us. And we were begging people to answer our questions and no one would. 80% of our industry in the assisted living space is run by immigrants from other countries. They come over, they buy a piece of real estate, put the seniors in it, they live in the home, work in the home, do everything themselves. And it's kind of their little best kept secret. Here in the Phoenix market, it's the Romanian community who kind of dominates this space. And they definitely didn't want to tell a little white girl like me any details. Okay. That was like, no, 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 no. So it's interesting because now when I'm willing to share this, I get a lot of hate from, the immigrant community who has dominated this. And they're like, like, stop telling them what to do. And I'm like, no, we all need to have wealth and financial freedom and family legacies. And also, our seniors need this. If you haven't had a loved one who needs care and assistance and you haven't gone through it yet, man, once you go through it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the most needed thing in our communities and our societies. And nobody talks about it until they deal with it. And then they're so, passionate about it. So, definitely, education is highly, highly important. I have loved our transition into that space because it started really naturally. Just my dad was a real estate investor, like I said, and he was doing everything under the sun. And people would, once he switched to this, it was like he sold everything, all of his multifamilies, all of his, buy and holds, everything he had, his Section 8s, everything, sold it all, went all in on assisted living and was cash flowing better than ever. And so people started asking, what are you doing? Like, tell me more. And so it started super naturally. Like, they would just come and he would literally drive him around in his car, show him his homes, tell him everything he's doing all the way till today, 13 years of educating later, where we have classes of 150 people every 8 weeks coming to Phoenix to literally learn a formulaic, like step by step. Here's exactly what you do. Here's the real estate to buy, how you get the funding, how to set up your documents, get licensed, hire all your staff, market to fill the home, and then run it remotely, run it hands off. And so we've really kind of come up with this beautiful system and been able to successfully share that with thousands of people over the years. And now we have homes all across the country of students who are doing this. And it's changing lives every day. And so I love the education space. I think it's so much fun. And I just really enjoyed being able to do for other people what my dad could do for us. Like what he gave to me, the best gift I can do is give that back to as many people as possible because
yeah.
that's key. That's everything in life. It's great that we make money, but if we don't teach our kids how to hold, maintain, and grow that money, what are we doing?
Yep, absolutely. And I, I know people that have listened to this show have heard me tell this story before. But I'm gonna share it again because it lines up with exactly what you're talking about. But so my primary business is I'm a short-term lender. I'm a hard money. I run a debt fund, and well, several years ago when we were starting this, we hired a mentor, a coach, basically a consultant for the first year to help us build everything. Well, she also was the CEO of a very large lending company that she was essentially helping build a competitor to her company. And I asked her early on, I said, why are you doing this? Why, you don't need the money. You've chosen to help us for whatever reason, because she didn't have a formal coaching program or anything. Why are you doing it? Why are you building a competitor to your company? And she said, and it's exactly what you're talking about. She said, there's enough sunshine for all of us. You taking some of the sunshine is not taking any away from me. And at this point, she's like, at this point in my life, if I can teach you how to do this and you go teach 10 people how to do it and they each 10, that's my legacy. So that abundance type of mindset is exactly what you're talking about. And I know a lot of people want to guard the secrets, but you paying it forward, think about the reach that it's having, not just you financially from having this company and your houses, but you are literally changing families' lives by teaching people how to do this to create opportunities to put their loved ones in these facilities. So I applaud you for that. So,
Well,
yeah.
thank you. And I have goosebumps when you say that because I do think that a lot of people are trepidatious when they work with a coach. They're like,
Yep.
why? And I like that you asked her that because not every coach is equal, right? There are a lot of people who will not help you out, not support you, take your money and kind of abandon you. And that is not okay. And it makes a bad reputation for the people who are doing, right by their mentees or students, whatever they call them. But I do think truly like there is more than enough to go around. And if I shared this message with every single person I came in contact with in my life, there's only a small percent of people who will actually take it and go
Right.
do it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that's the other thing too is like I love sharing this because I like to see who puts their money where their mouth is. Who is actually going to go out, take action and make it happen because everything you want is on the other side of taking action. But yet so many people sit and do nothing and just listen or read or research, but they don't actually go do it. That's the only thing that will ever bring you success in life is action.
Yep, 100%. Action and then consistency and
Mm.
compounding on that and whatnot. So, where I want to link everything in the show notes, but talk a little bit about the best way people can connect with your environment, everything you have going on with you to learn more about what programs you offer and things like that.
Yeah, RAL101.com is a great place to go for free books, webinars, or you can schedule a call with me or my team right there at RAL101.com.
Got it. And you said you host the every several months you do like 150 or so people there in Phoenix, right?
Yep. So those events, you can find out more about that on that site as well. We love hosting. We just had one last weekend. Actually, they're about every 6 to 8 weeks. So there's usually one on the horizon coming up. But those events are truly the educational like precipice. It's where we're showing you every single step that you need to go do this, so that you can go out, take that info, and make it happen in whatever market you're in.
Gotcha. And then you have a podcast as well that you talk about this stuff on a how often do you put a podcast out?
Yes, every Friday we drop new episodes of the Assisted Living Network podcast, the number one assisted living podcast. Woohoo! So
Love it.
go like and subscribe wherever you listen to your pods.
Yep. So we will drop that as well. And I would imagine just listening, like that's a great starting point for people that are interested
Yeah.
because you're talking about this stuff. And but obviously for people that want to take it a step further and actually take the action and get into it, you have plenty more resources. So Isabel, this is a fascinating topic, right? And I really think for us to really dissect it and get truly in the weeds on this, it would take us several hours. But what I wanted to do today, we have accomplished, and that is to get you on here to kind of introduce yourself and what this is at a high level, and hopefully spur some curiosity into the listeners to learn more. And I think you've definitely accomplished that today, and I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm so grateful, and everybody listening, I'm excited to connect with you however we can support. So do good and do well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Isabel. We'll talk soon. That wraps up this episode of the Dealmaker Catalyst. If you want to keep learning from elite operators and plug into a national community that lives this stuff every day, check out Dealmaker Catalyst. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's serious about leveling up. And we'll see you on the next Dealmaker Catalyst.